I was 72 when I finally understood what my grandfather meant about second chances. I'd been living alone in Phoenix for 3 years after losing my wife, convinced that chapter of my life was permanently closed. Then I moved to the Philippines and discovered something that completely shattered everything I believed about love, companionship, and what's possible when you think your story is already written. So what really happens when you stop living for everyone else's expectations and start living for yourself? My name is Frank. I'm 75 now, spent 42 years working construction across Arizona and Nevada, built shopping centers, apartment complexes, helped raise 2 kids with my wife Sarah in a small town outside Phoenix. We were married 38 years when cancer took her. Good marriage, solid life. Did everything we were supposed to do. Saved for retirement, paid off the house, watched our kids move to different states and start their own families. When Sarah died, I found myself rattling around that empty house, wondering what the hell I was supposed to do with whatever time I had left. The loneliness hit me like a freight train. People don't prepare you for how quiet a house becomes after losing your partner. Our kids called every week, visited during holidays, but they had their own lives 3 states away. I'd wake up at 5:30 every morning out of habit, make coffee for one instead of two, and sit at that kitchen table wondering why I was bothering. The routine that kept us together for decades suddenly felt like prison walls. My neighbor Jim suggested I try dating, 70-year-old widows on dating apps in Arizona. You want to know what that looks like? Women my age comparing Medicare supplements on first dates and talking about their grandchildren's college funds. Nothing wrong with that, but every conversation felt like interviewing potential roommates for a nursing home. Then my nephew Marcus, who'd been teaching English in Asia for 5 years, started sending me pictures from the Philippines. Not tourist stuff, regular life, markets, people laughing, community gatherings. He said something that stuck with me. He said the hardest part about moving there wasn't the culture shock. It was realizing how isolated he'd been back home without even knowing it. What I imagined was pretty simple. Cheap living, warm weather, maybe some fishing. I figured I'd rent a small place, keep to myself, stretch my social security and savings. Maybe learn enough of the language to buy groceries and ask for directions. I expected to be the old American guy sitting alone at cafes, reading books and watching the world go by. What actually happened started the moment I stepped off the plane in Manila. This wasn't some retirement community where everyone minded their own business. Neighbors introduced themselves before I'd unpacked my suitcase. The woman running the corner store remembered my name after 2 visits. People asked where I was from, what I did for work, whether I had family. Not nosy questioning, genuine interest. Within a week, I knew more people in my neighborhood than I'd talked to in Phoenix during my last 2 years there. I expected to feel like an outsider. Instead, I felt like I'd been missing something fundamental about how people actually connect with each other. The respect caught me completely off guard. Back home, being 72 meant being invisible. Store clerks looked through you. Waitresses rushed past your table. Younger people treated you like you were taking up space they needed. Here, age meant something different. People listened when I spoke. They asked about my experiences, my opinions, my stories from working construction. I remember sitting in this small restaurant in Dumaguete, and the owner's 20-something daughter spent an hour asking me about building techniques in America. She wasn't being polite. She was genuinely curious about craftsmanship and problem solving. When was the last time someone under 30 wanted to hear about your work experience? The community thing really got to me. Sunday mornings, families gathered in the town square. 3 generations talking, laughing, kids running around while grandparents watched from benches. I'd forgotten what that looked like. American families scatter after high school. Here they stick together, not out of obligation, but because they actually enjoy each other's company. Sitting on those benches, watching families interact, I realized how isolated Western culture had made me, without me even recognizing it. Meeting Elena happened by accident. I'd been in Dumaguete about 4 months, settling into a routine of morning walks and afternoon reading at this little cafe near the university. Elena worked there, not as a waitress, but managing the books. She'd been a teacher for 30 years before retiring, had 2 grown sons, lost her husband to diabetes 5 years earlier. We started with small talk about the weather. Then she asked what I was reading. Turned out we both loved mystery novels. She recommended Filipino authors I'd never heard of. I suggested some American writers she might enjoy. These conversations stretched longer each week. She had this way of asking questions that made you really think about your answers. Not surface stuff, but real questions about what you missed from your old life, what surprised you about living here, what you hope to do with your remaining years. The first time she invited me to join her family for Sunday dinner, I almost said no. Meeting the whole clan felt overwhelming. But Elena's sons treated me like a respected guest, not some foreign curiosity. We talked about construction techniques. They asked about raising children in America. We compared stories about losing spouses. By the end of the evening, I felt more connected to people than I had in years. Our relationship developed slowly. Filipino courtship moves at a different pace than American dating. We spent months as friends before anything romantic happened. She never pressured me to define what we were doing or where it was heading. We just enjoyed each other's company and let things develop naturally. Most people watching are probably wondering about the relationship side of things. Here's what I learned about dating and companionship after retirement in the Philippines that nobody talks about honestly. Forget everything you think you know about romance at this age. American dating after 70 feels like negotiating business partnerships. Who has better insurance? Whose kids live closer? Who can still drive at night? In the Philippines, relationships focus on actual compatibility and genuine affection. Elena and I connect intellectually, emotionally, and yes, physically, in ways that surprise both of us. The physical intimacy aspect deserves honest discussion. I thought that part of my life ended when Sarah died. American culture treats sexuality after 70 like it's inappropriate or impossible. Here, affection between older couples is natural and accepted. Elena and I discovered that decades of life experience actually enhance intimacy rather than diminish it. We know what we want, we communicate clearly, and we appreciate tenderness in ways younger people haven't learned yet. Cultural differences created challenges I didn't anticipate. Filipino women express emotions differently than American women. Elena shows caring through actions more than words. She remembers my doctor appointments, notices when I'm feeling tired, adjusts our plans based on my energy levels without making me feel fragile. This took adjustment because Sarah and I communicated more directly. The family integration happened faster than expected. Within 6 months, Elena's grandchildren were calling me Lolo, which means grandfather. I became part of family celebrations, holiday traditions, daily life in ways that felt natural rather than forced. Compare that to American dating, where meeting someone's adult children requires formal introductions and careful boundary setting. I made mistakes that nearly ruined everything. The biggest one was assuming I understood Filipino culture after a few months of living here. I misinterpreted Elena's indirect communication style as lack of interest. When she suggested postponing a weekend trip, I thought she was losing feelings for me. Really, she was worried about my blood pressure medication and wanted me to check with my doctor first. I ignored red flags with other women before meeting Elena. One woman in Manila seemed perfect until I realized she was primarily interested in financial support for her extended family. Nothing wrong with family obligations, but she wasn't honest about expectations up front. I lost some money and learned expensive lessons about distinguishing genuine connection from opportunity. The visa situation almost sent me home. Navigating Philippine immigration as a retiree involves paperwork, fees, and bureaucracy that can break your spirit. I spent months stressed about legal residency requirements while trying to build a relationship. The uncertainty affected my mood and confidence in ways that almost cost me my connection with Elena. I almost made a huge mistake by trying to maintain my Phoenix house as backup. The emotional safety net was costing me money and preventing full commitment to my new life. Elena noticed my divided attention and called me out on it. She said I was living with one foot in each country, which wasn't fair to either life. Take at least 6 months to understand local culture before pursuing serious relationships. Learn basic language skills, not just tourist phrases. Understand family dynamics, communication styles, and social expectations. Rushing into romance without cultural foundation creates unnecessary problems. Build friendships with other expatriate retirees and local Filipino families. These connections provide perspective, support, and reality checks when you're making important decisions. Isolation makes you vulnerable to poor choices and cultural misunderstandings. Be completely honest about your financial situation, health concerns, and long-term plans. Filipino women appreciate directness about practical matters, even when emotional communication stays indirect. Transparency builds trust and prevents unrealistic expectations. Never compare your new relationship to your previous marriage. Elena isn't replacing Sarah. She's creating something entirely different based on who I am now, not who I was 30 years ago. Comparison kills appreciation for what you're actually building together. What does happiness really mean after retirement? I spent 60 years defining success through productivity, accumulation, and achievement. Work hard, save money, raise kids, build security. All important goals. But they don't teach you how to actually live once those responsibilities end. Happiness at 75 looks like sitting with Elena on our terrace in the evening, watching her water her plants while I read. It's feeling useful when neighborhood kids ask me to help fix their bicycles. It's being part of something larger than myself, without carrying the weight of providing for everyone. What matters more now than when I was 40? Connection over accomplishment, experience over possessions, presence over productivity. At 40, I thought happiness meant reaching goals. At 75, happiness means appreciating what's happening right now, without constantly planning for the next thing. If you're standing at a crossroads, wondering whether meaningful relationships are still possible in your 70s, or if you're considering making a major life change after retirement, I want you to know that life doesn't shrink after 65. Sometimes the most beautiful chapters happen when you stop following other people's playbooks. If this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss more honest conversations about life, love, and finding purpose in your later years. Drop a comment below and tell me what assumption about aging or retirement you think needs questioning. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Moving to the Philippines didn't make me younger or erase the grief of losing Sarah. It reminded me that growing older doesn't mean your capacity for love, growth, and surprise is finished. Sometimes the best chapters of your story get written when you stop following other people's scripts and start writing your own ending.